Did you know that people in jail can vote? Nationwide, there are people all over the country who are eligible to vote that are incarcerated. And today, we're taking a very close look at the state of California. This article by LAist is talking about the story of Ronald Latney. So, one big problem and misconception is that people in prison can't vote. When people equate prisons to jails, that is where the misconception and the confusion comes in because prisons and jails are not the same. In many states, you can still vote with a misdemeanor. It's simpler to list out the states where you cannot vote while serving a misdemeanor sentence, and those include Michigan, Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, and South Carolina. So if you're incarcerated but have not been convicted of a felony, you are still eligible to vote if you are not in one of those states. This is a 50-state legal review. There are, on any given day, more than 500,000 Americans held in a jail for pretrial detention or misdemeanor offenses. If jails refuse to implement a policy for jail voting, then they are denying hundreds of thousands of eligible voters from participating in election. This is really, really significant. An article that was written by Antoinette Ratcliffe, who is the executive director of Initiate Justice. The Sacramento Bee reports in California, all eligible voters, including those incarcerated, should be able to vote. There are some really unique things about being in jail that make it difficult for jail voters to actually act on that right. So in 2021, there was another assembly bill that passed that restored voting rights to Californians on parole. And so this is the first general election that is happening since that every citizen should have the right to vote, regardless of their circumstances, including involvement in the criminal legal system. Now, the reason why this is so significant and why voting rights shouldn't be tied to someone's involvement in the criminal legal system is because although Black Californians only make up 5% of the population in the state, they account for 28%, nearly a third of the incarcerated population in the state. That obviously reflects some sort of bias in the criminal legal system. And they are incarcerated 9 times the rate of white Californians. This is also a problem for Latino Californians, which are also disproportionately incarcerated at twice the rate of white Californians. Now, understanding that people of color are more likely to be arrested, sentenced, convicted, and incarcerated, is it really just to tie our voting rights to criminal legal involvement? Assemblymember Isaac Bryan does not think so, and neither do those who support Assembly Bill 544. This will provide a grant to 3 counties, including San Mateo, Santa Cruz, and San Benito, in order to implement in-person voting in the county jails. We've already seen that in-person voting in county jails is a successful practice in order to allow for incarcerated citizens to have equal access to the ballot as those who are not incarcerated. We saw this in Cook County jails. There, prior to implementing an in-person polling option, less than 7% of folks were able to participate in elections that sought the ballot. Now, over 50% have been able to participate in elections. We also saw this in Dallas County, Texas, where the sheriff implemented a jail-based voting option. So we've seen this in different parts of the country, from the Midwest to the Deep South. Why is it that California hasn't been involved in jail-based voting in order to support incarcerated citizens who are eligible? Now let's flip the coin over and learn about why absentee voting, voting by mail, is just not a sufficient method to depend on for jailed voters. From AP News, thousands in California's jails have the right to vote, but here's why many don't. Again, we come back to the story of Ronald Latney, who believed that his vote did not matter. He was able to convince his peers in the facility why voting is significant, because there are district attorney races and bail policies that impact them directly and relate directly to what they are currently experiencing. Just last year, there were 78,000 people in county jails, 60% of which are eligible to vote. And because jails don't offer an in-person voting option, it can be challenging for people who might be registered at another address, like their home address, to participate in the absentee ballot process. In addition to that, Californian jails, like all facilities, have a very lengthy mail screening process, which can cause delays, which most often does result in delays for folks trying to receive their ballots, trying to get access to registration forms, to voter education material like voter guides, and often won't receive those materials in time to take action. And others don't receive voter information at all. In California, there is a limit to the number of pages that you can be sent in a mail. And we all know that voter guides can be quite long. And so for those seeking out voter information in order to feel equipped to use their ballot, they won't be able to get a voter guide to actually use their ballot effectively. You might say, okay, they can't get a guide, but maybe there are folks that they can ask in the jail for help. Staff aren't, and we don't expect them to be election experts. There are outside advocate groups who specialize in this type of work, but they have very limited access to jail populations, only being allowed certain number of visits or a limited amount of time when they are able to enter the jail. That really restricts the amount of voter education and election information that people who are seeking to exercise their right to vote in jail would have access to. Article also speaks about Thomas Neal. There are counties where he actually had to petition for voting resources to be made available to him. Unfortunately, while he was in jail and eligible to vote and seeking to do so, he had to go through extra barriers in order to access voting resources because the jail said that he wasn't allowed to have them. Maybe staff misunderstood that he had the right to vote, which is the case in a lot of cases. Staff don't even know that they have eligible voters among them, and so they don't take on the opportunity to have voting resources in the jail or allow advocates to enter the jail or even implement programs, especially in the jail for those voters. So I just want to show you all a tool, whether you're in the state of California or any state in the United States, you can use this tool in order to determine your eligibility. But let's look specifically at California so that we can demystify voter eligibility in the state. If you have not been convicted of a felony, it's simple. You can vote. In California, no one is disenfranchised for misdemeanors or any other convictions other than felonies. And that's true even if you are incarcerated and charged with a felony. I hope that folks can take the time to go learn more about Assembly Bill 544. I hope that folks can also take the time to check out Initiate Justice Work, Assembly Bill 544. It is currently on the governor's desk. It has been sponsored by Assemblymember Isaac Bryan. It's made it through, thankfully, the legislature, and it's on its last leg. So if you all want to contact your governor, if you're in the state of California especially, please do so. Thanks for listening. Check the description below for more resources.